So this is accessible social. This is not what my PowerPoints typically look like when I open up. I don't like to put my face in front, but I thought it'd be kind of fun for the pop culture angle to make my opening slide look like the front of a magazine cover. So for anyone who doesn't know me, I am Alexa Heinrich. I am an accidental expert on accessibility for social media. So most people know me for yelling about alt text and camel case hashtags and how much I hate ASCII art and stuff like that. Tonight, I have created a pop culture themed presentation about inclusive best practices for social media for all of you. So basically, you're going to want to keep count of how many pop culture references are in this presentation and how many celebrities I have managed to fit into this presentation because it's quite a few. So I'll be interested to see how many references you pick up on and how many celebrities you spot in this presentation. But I'm going to go ahead and get started with my talking. So when it comes to accessibility, many digital marketers want to know what makes it important for social media and what it means to be inclusive online. Not everyone experiences or navigates digital spaces the same way. There are people with disabilities around the world who rely on assistive technology like screen readers, text-to-speech programs, and captioning to consume digital content. Someone may use an assistive device because they have a sensory disability that is permanent, such as blindness or hearing loss that cannot be medically treated or reversed. Their disability could be temporary due to an injury like a bruised eye or an illness, such as losing your hearing from an ear infection, which I have personally experienced before as a child. Or their disability is possibly situational, which means it's affected by their environment or circumstances, like having trouble seeing in different levels of lighting or hearing in a crowded room. It's important to remember that disability is not black and white. It's a full spectrum of possibilities. So I know a lot of people, when they think of a disabled user, they think of someone who is permanently blind, totally blind, permanently deaf, completely deaf, and that's just not the case. There are people who are within this spectrum of disability. To give you a brief overview of assistive technology you may not be familiar with before we really get into this presentation, there are screen readers, which are software programs that allow blind and visually impaired users to read the text that is displayed on a screen with a speech synthesizer or braille display. Speech synthesizers are text-to-speech systems used with computers that are programmed to include all the phonemes and grammatical rules of a language, allowing words to be pronounced correctly. For example, a speech synthesizer is what allows a screen reader to know when to say they read a book versus they will read a book, since read and read are both spelled the same way. Another great example is the word resume versus the word resume. They're both technically spelled the same way, but one word has accent marks on it and the other does not. A braille display provides access to information on a computer screen by electronically raising and lowering different combinations of pins and braille cells. This technology is crucial for people who are deafblind because they cannot rely on their sight or their hearing in digital spaces, so they need braille. Then there are text-to-speech programs, which is technology that is used to change data into spoken words. Most smartphones now have text-to-speech programs built into them, turning a phone into a screen reader, which you'll see here in a moment with my iPhone. So I use an iPhone, which means I have VoiceOver for my text-to-speech program. If you are an Android user, you would have TalkBack in your accessibility suite. So you'll hear VoiceOver activate here.
VoiceOver on. Settings. VoiceOver. Apps. Twitter. Active. Twitter. Alexa. At Alexa testing 123. If you're going to do a mass emoji tweet, at least stick to one emoji like this. 9 page.
So you heard my VoiceOver come on, the voice started to speak and navigated through different apps. I chose a tweet for it to read. You could kind of hear the tapping noise. When you use your text-to-speech program on your phone, you feel little micro vibrations in your screen. So you can kind of indicate what you're touching. Same thing with the black box. It just indicates what content is being read aloud by my text-to-speech program. So it's a very interesting program to use if you've never used it before. Read the instructions before you activate it. Otherwise, you could end up like me and accidentally call 911. Clearwater Police was not happy with me. So when it comes to digital accessibility, you want to keep in mind that roughly 466 million people worldwide have disabling hearing loss, and at least 2.2 billion people have a vision impairment or experience blindness, according to the World Health Organization. Collectively, this is a huge portion of the global population that has a sensory disability. These numbers could also be bigger because not everyone is comfortable disclosing that they are disabled. When you don't create or publish accessible social media content, that means you're potentially excluding a huge part of your audience from your messaging and missing out on important conversions, conversations, and connections, which as digital marketers is our worst nightmare. So it's bad marketing and it's just bad humanness. Now that you know why you should be creating accessible social media content, it's time to learn how. I'm going to focus on 4 key areas of digital accessibility for social media. I'm going to go over hashtags, emojis and icons, videos, and images. And I've kind of flipped what I normally do. So I normally do videos last, but I kind of packed the image section of this presentation with a lot of fun stuff. So I put that at the end. I know a couple of you have actually sat through my presentations before. So this first section is how to be accessible with hashtags. When it comes to social media's favorite conversation device, make sure to capitalize each word in your compound hashtags. This method is sometimes referred to as title case, Pascal case, and my personal favorite name for it, camel case. Happy hump day, by the way. The capital letters in a compound hashtag help screen readers denote these separate words, allowing them to pronounce compound hashtags correctly and not as one amalgamated word. There have been some notable hashtag fails over the years that could have been prevented by using camel case. So we've seen the most recent one, which was who remembers, but without camel case, it could kind of look like horror members. So, I mean, both those hashtags work for me, but to each their own, it's fine. There's also last year, I believe it was Pokemon Masters X, which was part of the Pokemon game collection. Without camel case, could be construed as Pokemon Master Sex. So again, to each their own. I don't see a problem with either of these, but anyway. And then the most famous hashtag fail of them all, Susan Album Party, when Susan Boyle released her album. Without camel case, it appeared sus anal bum party, so kind of questionable. It should also be noted that camel case can be applied to your Twitter handle. So in my Twitter handle, I am hashtag Hey Alexa. First H in hashtag is uppercased. The H in Hey is uppercase, and the first A in Alexa is uppercase, so that screen readers say my Twitter handle correctly. And camel case is actually easier for literally everyone to read. So it's not just a disability thing. It is easier for every human being to read just based on how our eyes track letters. So that is the easy way to make your hashtag accessible. Moving on to my favorite section, how to be accessible when you use emojis and icons. So everyone loves emoji, but did you know that each individual emoji has its own unique description assigned to it? When a screen reader comes across an emoji, it will read the emoji's description aloud to the user or transcribe that description into Braille. Many emojis have descriptions and appearances that differ across platforms, devices, and browsers. This particular emoji is known as eggplant, aubergine, purple vegetable, and phallic. So those are official descriptions that are assigned to this particular emoji on what platform, device, or browser you're viewing it on. Even emoji with skin tones get custom descriptions. If a screen reader were to read this line of emojis aloud, it would say raised fist light skin tone, raised fist medium light skin tone, raised fist medium skin tone, raised fist medium dark skin tone, and raised fist dark skin tone. Keep in mind that because a screen reader picks up on the description of emojis, the excessive use of them is not advised. It's also worth noting that screen readers will often truncate a line of emojis if only one specific icon is used. For instance, this group of emojis would be read as 24 rockets and not the word rocket being said 24 times. So you often see Twitter accounts doing cute and clever illustrations with emojis. Sometimes you see up and coming brands doing launch countdowns using emojis. Those make no sense to a screen reader whatsoever. So you're just going to hear a bunch of emoji repeated, and it's not going to illustrate the actual picture that you want to hear. It's best to put emojis at the end of your content, otherwise you could make your message confusing, like with this example tweet. Once a screen reader translated the emojis, the content ran into several clarity issues, as shown by the bolded copy in red, that indicates where the
I just need to acknowledge the moment that Alex just rickrolled all of us.
Did I? This is
She just rickrolled all of us in her
up arrow, down arrow, desert, smiling face with tear, waving hand, face with. I'm sorry, I was so excited for that part. Like my heart is racing getting to that part.
Bravo. Bravo.
Thank you. I was really excited for that when I thought of it. So I'm sorry, guys.
Also, was that you doing the screen reader?
It is.
I thought I recognized your voice. I was like, wait a minute, the screen reader.
I pulled it apart in iMovie and then I did voiceover with it and I put it all together, but I was proud of it yesterday when I thought of it. So, but anyway, I'm glad you appreciate it.
Is that a bit that you do for most of your presentations, or was that special to us? That seems like a lot.
That was special to this presentation.
I was honored.
Find ways to incorporate pop culture moments, celebrities into each section. And that was how I got a celebrity moment into my emoji section. So yeah, I was pretty proud of that idea.
Love it.
As several of my friends found out via text, I was like, please listen to this. Anyway, an excellent resource for digital content creators who want to use emoji in smart and strategic ways is emojipedia.org. This website lists every emoji along with their different appearances and descriptions across platforms, devices, and browsers. Now, I personally use Emojipedia almost every single day. I have it bookmarked on my web browser as a quick shortcut just because of how frequently I actually visit the site. If you've never visited, you totally should. It's also the site that we all kind of know for emoji updates and new releases and stuff like that. So emojipedia.org is a great website to have bookmarked. So when it comes to emoji and social media, you should use them in moderation. Double check their description before using them. Place them at the end of posts and tweets to avoid clarity issues, and resist changing the color on emojis with variable skin tones unless necessary for context. Now, that last tip is for people who manage social media professionally for brands and organizations. I would never presume to tell someone what emoji skin tone they should use for their own identity on their personal social media. Another best practice for icons is one that focuses on a trend often seen on Instagram and is especially popular with beauty and lifestyle bloggers. Content creators have started using external websites to generate fancy Unicode characters for their posts to make the copy appear in different weights, styles, and fonts. So you'll notice the yellow has highlighted these lines of text that don't appear to match the default font for Instagram. These were generated on an external website. There's quite a few of them out there, but they are not native to the app. Unfortunately, some assistive devices cannot decipher these characters and will typically skip over them, as shown in this first example tweet. So I wrote an example tweet using 3 lines of different Unicode characters for this tweet, and then the second half of this tweet is the default font for Twitter. So this is what my screen reader did when it tried to read this tweet.
Alexa, at Alexa testing 123. Unfortunately, screen readers cannot read these Unicode characters, making them inaccessible. Hashtag accessibility. 4 minutes
So my screen
ago.
reader completely skipped over those Unicode characters. It cannot identify them as readable characters. Now, even worse are the Unicode characters from external sites that turn your text into indistinguishable noises when it's read by a screen reader.
Alexa, at Alexa testing 123 circled Latin capital letter S.
I only showcased a few seconds of that tweet because it goes on for quite some time. It actually took my phone screen reader about 2.5 minutes to read that entire tweet aloud entirely. So content creators should only use the default fonts and formatting on the apps and platforms. Otherwise, you could cause accessibility issues, as we saw here. This next section will go over making videos accessible. So no matter where a video is posted, whether it's on a website or social media, it should contain captioning, sometimes called subtitles, so that deaf and hard of hearing users can understand and enjoy the content. Now, captioning can be closed or open. Closed captioning can be toggled on and off based on the preferences of the viewer and is commonly seen on platforms like YouTube and Vimeo, as well as movie streaming services. This is an example of closed captioning on HBO Max. You'll see me turn the captions on partway through this iconic scene from the movie The Mummy. And it's kind of funny because part of this scene actually uses open captions as well because the character speaks a different language. So I love The Mummy, and I always suggest to people, if you want to get better at writing captions, specifically open or closed captions, watch any type of movie, but specifically drama and action movies, because you'll notice that it's not just the talking that they include any of the sound effects. So the gasping, the growling, the roaring is included because those are important audio features within scenes. So I thought that was kind of a fun scene to show the closed captioning for. An easy way to add closed captioning to a video is to upload it to YouTube as unlisted, which means it's unsearchable, and give YouTube a little time to generate auto captions for it. Once the auto captions have been created by YouTube, you can edit them in the subtitles tab so they're accurate. After you've published your edited captions, YouTube will sync your timing, and then you can switch your video to public. So that's what I did here. That's what I do with all my YouTube videos. It's a super easy way to do closed captioning for your videos. It's also free. Anyone can have access to a YouTube channel as long as you have a Gmail account. So this is the cheap and easy way to do closed captioning. The other thing I like about doing closed captions through YouTube, besides the fact that it's pretty accurate to begin with, is the fact that once I have published those captions, I can download the SRT captions file and use that anywhere that I upload the video, let's say directly to Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, any platform that supports direct file upload with SRT file it's just really handy to have. So even if you don't list the video on your YouTube channel, you can still use it to generate your captions, which is just super handy when you don't have money for captioning services. Open captioning, on the other hand, is permanently burned onto a video in post-production and cannot be turned off by the viewer. This is the type of captioning you'll see on platforms like TikTok and Instagram, where closed captioning isn't readily available for all users yet. So it is kind of coming in waves to Instagram, and TikTok is currently rolling out its closed captioning feature. But for now, content creators have been making their own open captions, which is why when I go into TikTok, I kind of get a laugh out of seeing people writing captions and they'll write CC in front of them to denote that they've done closed captions, when in reality they've done open captions. They just don't realize that there's a difference. So this is an example of open captions on a TikTok video.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Millennial Weekly Recap. What color should I use? Purple? Blue? Blue. Who here used to wear Ed Hardy, just out of curiosity? Tiffany, yeah, you. Get out. Just a reminder, with things opening back up, we are going to need to come up with new excuses to get out of plans that we don't want to go to. Perhaps not agreeing to them in the first place. So this week, Wisconsin filed a lawsuit against Bagel Bites saying they weren't using real cheese on their bagels. Seemed like a given, right? Was anything real that we put into our bodies in the early 2000s? It's weird to think about that. We used to say BRB on AIM if we were going to the bathroom for 3 seconds, but it takes us days to respond to a text. Weird reminder for you. Poking on Facebook. Glad they got rid of that. Shout out to the original TikTok, E-Bombs World. Am I right? Times were a lot simpler, huh? Did you guys watch Salad Fingers? That was weird. It's come to my attention that Gen Z does not know what burning a CD means. I think it means physically throwing it into a fire. They also don't know that the save icon is a flop. Just depressing. Overall, we need to stop saying hang up the phone when we're done with a phone call. Gen Z does not understand what that term means. Gen Z's doing this and I really don't know what it means. I'm getting ripped tonight. RIP that. Hey! I think it's inappropriate. Hold on. Got the. All right, so there is a rocket hurtling towards the Earth's surface. We don't know where it's going to land, and there's a 1% chance that it will injure someone, which, let's be honest, it's probably going to be me. Can't wait. I would be surprised if nothing surprised me anymore, you know? I thought we could end today's meeting with an inspirational quote. I know you can be overwhelmed, and you can be underwhelmed, but can you just be whelmed? Gabrielle Union in the hit movie, 10 Things I Hate About You. All right, guys, get this bread, rise and grind, or whatever BS you want to say. Have a good week.
So I thought that was an excellent example of open captioning. And I just thought it was hilarious how many references that fit in there. So it was perfect. Rod is a perfect human being on TikTok. You should go watch his videos because they make me laugh all the time.
Do those references count towards your presentation?
They can be,
is it
but
just
I don't count them.
one
I didn't
rod?
try counting them. So
Okay. I'm trying to take notes, so.
there was a lot in there, so I won't use those against the total because I can't count all of them fast enough. But good question. So if you'd like to create open captions for a video and not do it the hard way that a lot of TikTok users seem to do, there are several great captioning apps out there, including Mixed Captions, Clip-O-Matic, AutoCap, Capwing, Clips, and Threads. This is an example of a video that I did open captions for and used the app Mixed Captions. So here's the infamous cat butt for everyone who has seen her before.
Hello, Miss Serafina. Are you taking a little nap? A little bit of a cat nap? Huh? Yeah, a little bit of a cat nap.
So I totally trained her to do that on command. No, she was just very cooperative, which never happens with that cat. She is a hell child, but I thought she was appropriate for this. And then live streaming, when you host online events or do live streaming, consider using video services that have live captioning, or at the very least, provide a full video transcript soon after your event ends. You can also hire an on-camera interpreter, but please be aware that just because someone is deaf or hard of hearing does not mean they know sign language. So an interpreter should not be hired in place of using captions. It's important to remember that. This last section is typically the one that I get the most questions about, and get your pens ready because this is where most of the references and celebrities are. So enjoy. But how to be accessible with images. Now, images play a key part on social media, but how does someone with a vision disability experience a picture? Screen readers need alt text, a short physical summary of the image, in order to accurately describe it to a user. Now, alt text can be auto-generated by some platforms, but Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and even Pinterest now all allow you to manually write alt text, which is preferred to AI-generated alt text. On Facebook, alt text can be added by clicking edit in the upper left corner of an image before posting it to your Facebook page, profile, or group, and typing the alt text in the appropriate field. On the web version and mobile app of Twitter, along with TweetDeck, the alt text option appears with images as add description or plus alt. You can also add alt text to GIFs on Twitter if you use their built-in GIF library on the mobile and web versions of the platform. Twitter is also the only social media platform right now that allows you to add alt text to your images in its story feature, which is called Fleets. So it was the last platform to get stories, but it is the only platform that said, hey, we want you to be able to see the stories even if you are blind or visually impaired. For Instagram, when you get to the final screen before publishing your posts, tap Advanced Settings, scroll to Accessibility, click Write Alt Text, and then add your image description. If you have multiple images, there will be a slot for each image on that final screen. So I've gotten questions about this before. I actually don't write my image description in this alt text field because I have gotten feedback from other users saying that not all assistive devices pick up on this field on Instagram. So what I actually do is I write my image description after my caption in the caption section of the post. So I'll write my caption and then I'll do 2 hard returns and then I'll write the words image description and then whatever my alt text would have been is what I write there. So this also is conveniently gets around the API problem with Instagram and third-party management sites, which I will talk about in a brief second. So LinkedIn has one of the easiest alt text features to find and use. As soon as you upload a picture to your LinkedIn post, add alt text appears as a button in the upper right-hand corner of your image in the next window. You should keep in mind that LinkedIn alt text does have a 120 character limit, so be intentional about the images you choose. There have been several instances where I wanted to use an image and I looked at it, I'm like, no, I'm not using that image because I don't feel like writing alt text for that. And I choose a different image that is easier to describe because sometimes I just don't have the brain power for it. Now, alt text publishing capabilities vary across popular third-party management sites, and unfortunately, none can currently post to Instagram with alt text due to the API restrictions of the app. However, if you're looking to schedule Instagram posts with alt text, you can do so through Facebook Creator Studio if your Instagram is a creator or business account and linked to a published Facebook page. But as I said earlier, I get around this by just writing my image description in the caption of my Instagram post. So I'm a dedicated Sprout social user. What up, Joe Huber? I know you're in here. So I actually just write my alt text in the caption, and then I can just continue to use Sprout Social to my heart's content. Now, here are a few tips for writing effective alt text along with some examples. You want to avoid flowery language. You should focus on describing the physical aspects of the picture and speak in plain language. Resist the urge to be overly ornate or effusive with your descriptions. I'm typically pretty clinical with my descriptions, pointing out the key details. I don't try to add my own emotion to the images unless there's something that's very obvious. Like if someone is exuberant, then yes, you're going to describe their expression. So I thought this was a good picture for that. It's a very iconic one, as much as I don't like the person on the right. But anyway, keep your alt text relatively short. I normally make mine the length of about 1 tweet, but that's also dependent on the image that you choose. Writing alt text is a very subjective exercise, and it's also something that is on a case-by-case basis, and no content creator is going to write alt text the same way. There's no such thing as perfection when it comes to writing alt text because everyone has their own style of writing, and people also have their own preferences when it comes to what they want their alt text to sound like. Exclude picture of or image of from your alt text. It's already assumed that your alt text will be for a photo or image, and a screen reader will more than likely say image of before or after reading your alt text. However, if your image file is something like an illustration, a painting, or even a screenshot, you can include that in your alt text because it gives that user a better idea of how to visualize the image. So if Caitlin's in here, she frequently does beautiful illustrations. If I'm sharing one of her images, I'm going to say illustration of, just to make it very clear, it's not just a photo out of a camera, it's an illustration. Avoid posting images with flattened text. So if you're posting a copy-heavy graphic or an image that has text overlaid on it, as seen here, you'll need to add alt text for the flattened copy. If you drag your cursor over the text on an image and it doesn't highlight the individual words or characters, it's not readable, which means it's also not actionable. JPEG, PNG, and GIF files do not support readable text. So that's just not a thing. As soon as an image gets exported, or uploaded to a platform, those characters are now objects. They can't be identified by a screen reader as readable characters. So when you use flattened copy on images, It's also very dependent on what the rest of your post looks like. So I could have written a post for this, and the written part could have said, breaking news, Ryan Reynolds is the 2010 sexiest man alive. And I may not have needed to include that in my alt text because I would be repeating myself. So again, you have to look at your content as a whole. How does the alt text help your written copy? It's okay to use proper nouns and names. So if a well-known person, place, or thing is in your image and it adds context to your content, go ahead and name it. So for this particular image, I did make sure to include the name of the Chinese theater, because that's where this particular event always happens. It's by the Chinese theater. And I also included the fact that this was for their movie La La Land, because it felt relevant. I know this is one of the moves that they do in their movie. They don't look this confused by it, but it is, it is a move in that movie. Don't feel like you need to describe everything. If something in the image is significant to understanding the whole picture or post, describe it. If it's not, skip it and save your characters for the important stuff. So I could go into a lot of detail about what the kind of cuts of meat she has tying around her shoes, all this other stuff, but let's be real. The most important detail about this image is the fact that Lady Gaga is wearing a dress, shoes, purse, and hair accessory completely made from raw red meat. And that's all anyone is going to care about. You can include extra identifiers for people. So if the race, gender, ethnicity, or another identifier for a person is relevant to the overall context of the image, feel free to add it. It also helps in this instance to think of your content as a whole. Is that identifier contextually important? If someone did not know Colin Kaepernick before this moment, you would need to describe the fact that he is a Black man. It is contextually important to this image because it is contextually important to the story as a whole. So that's how you have to think of your content. Am I missing details? There are oftentimes images that I do for the college that I work for where I just say an SBC student. I don't describe their gender, their ethnicity, their race, or anything, because it's not actually contextually important to the content that I'm writing. And that also allows someone to put themselves into that image if they so choose. But in this instance, this man's race is very important to this image. Avoid acronyms if possible. It's better to type out the full name or title of a person, place, organization, or initiative because screen readers don't always read acronyms correctly. Lesser known acronyms also don't add a lot of context to an image. If you do use an acronym in your alt text, type out the full name or title first, and then place dashes or spaces in between each letter of the acronym so that the screen reader says it properly. This would be an instance where I would encourage everyone to test their content before publishing it for the rest of the world. In this instance, I chose this picture of Rihanna at the Video Music Awards. I did say Video Music Awards. I did not say VMAs. I can't guarantee without testing it that a screen reader is going to say it correctly. It might say VMAs is my guess, is what I would try and say, honestly. There are acronyms that are said correctly by screen readers. So NASA is an example that comes off the top of my head. It's just so well known that a screen reader says it is NASA. So again, you want to test those acronyms before you publish your content. And then add your keywords for improved SEO. This piece of advice is more for images on websites than social media, but it's a good tip to keep in mind just in case search engines ever evolve to pick up alt text on social media images. To my knowledge, they currently do not. However, keywords and alt text on Instagram do affect your search results within the app, but you should always prioritize the accurate description of your images and not your SEO, not your, searchability. There are tips floating around TikTok and Instagram where content creators tell other content creators to pack the alt text field on Instagram with keywords to affect their search results. Do not do that. Because yes, it does affect your SEO, but if someone using a screen reader comes across your content and their screen reader picks up on that alt text field, they are just going to hear a bunch of random words that don't make any sense and don't serve a purpose for them because they need that description. So if you can logically work your keywords, like in this instance, it would be pattern dress, Fendi, Pret, faux fur would be some keywords. Aquafina is technically a keyword for this, but they all make sense to my alt text. They paint a picture with the words. Whereas if I'm just throwing in shoes, dress, bar, window, and some random moshing of words, that makes no sense whatsoever. So please don't do that. Otherwise I will come for you. I will find you. This next slide, try to hold your giggles. So I want you to take 2 minutes to write your best alt text for this image of James Charles at Coachella in 2019. At the end of the 2 minutes, I'm going to invite anyone who's feeling confident to read their alt text aloud to all of us. So just kind of soak in this image a little bit. I'm going to move on to the next slide in a second here. But if you're feeling confident with the alt text that you write up for this image, you don't need to write it down, but if you could give an accurate description once the slide is gone, go ahead and turn your mic on. So with that, I am at the end, but my key takeaway for everyone with this presentation, as silly as it was in certain areas, I want you to remember, in order to be truly inclusive online, you need to think beyond your own background and lived experiences. How does your digital content impact people who don't look, sound, or live like you? Everyone always thinks that I'm just giving you best practices to make your content accessible. It goes beyond accessibility. Accessibility sits under the umbrella of inclusion. So it is a DEI area, but again, in order to be truly diverse, equitable, and inclusive, you need to step out of your own lived experiences when you create content. So you can't just be thinking about how that content affects you, how you think about it. You need to think about others and people who live differently from you. With that, I am done talking now. But if after Pop Chat Happy Hour is long over and 7 hours or whatever, if you have more questions for me and you don't know how to find me on Twitter, which would be surprising, you can always find me online at therealalexa.com, which is me throwing shade at Amazon because they stole my name. But anyway, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and stop talking now. But I hope everyone enjoyed that. Does anyone feel confident enough to read their alt text aloud for Mr. James Charles?
Got a bunch in the chat here.
Oh gosh.
People want to read them out loud.
Oh yeah, we do. I'm so proud of you guys.
Now we know why you were Googling assless chaps.
Mm-hmm. Yep.